The Manitowish Waters Historical Society, in collaboration with Jessie Van Rossum and Rachel Osep, are pleased to present Tribute to the Guides Inn, a Northwoods treasure for 40 years. Coming off of County M, just outside of Boulder Junction, the classic Guides Inn sign made of fieldstone directed folks into the parking lot to start their evenings. Since 1984, the Van Rossum family has delivered extraordinary cuisine and service to Northwoods patrons. Many of the great dishes and experiences at the Guides Inn have been chronicled in magazines, newspapers, and recognized by numerous awards. Jimmy Dean was a proud U.S. Marine veteran and a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. Guests are excited as they enter the building because immediately they see the chalkboard with all the specials for the evening tucked in the corner. Next to the chalkboard is a lovely painting of the Guides Inn. After crossing the threshold into the Guides Inn, guests can hook a left to go to the classic bar for some beverages and cocktails, or head to the right and sit in the lovely seating area. As folks move about the entire building, they'll quickly note that the Guides Inn is actually a museum with all the artifacts of fishing, hunting, Northwoods destination, and culinary excellence. Classic photos and mounts abound throughout the Guides Inn. And again, in a museum-like setting, this restaurant has captured many of the great stories of the Northwoods. Jimmy Dean and Jessie Van Rossum have run the Guides Inn. The picture on the left of Jimmy Dean at Jessie's graduation from the Culinary Institute of America is an important picture that shows the generational love these men shared for excellent cuisine and restaurant service. Here are some shots of Jimmy Dean in the kitchen and serving great meals to the community. Delivering on a promise, the Guides Inn. We particularly pride ourselves in the outstanding variety and exceptional quality of the entrees we serve. This promise was a promise that was delivered consistently over 40 years. Recently, Jessie found the original 1984 menu, which is at the top of this slide, and then we contrast that to the menu in February of 2024. Some of the longtime residents and visitors of the Northwoods might recognize the 1984 menu's writing as being Jimmy Dean's, as he authored the first description of his vision of a culinary destination within the Northwoods. You may find it interesting to go back to this menu in future years and contrast the offerings and notice the similarities and then the evolution within the Guides Inn. We're now going to begin a journey of going through what a typical meal would have been like on a night at the Guides Inn. And oftentimes, folks decide to hook a left at the entry and come into one of the most unique bars within the Wisconsin Northwoods. Cocktails, wine, beer, and appetizers were favorites at the bar before patrons would then be ushered into the dining room. Upon entering the dining room and being seated, the waiter or waitress would explain the creative appetizers. Those appetizers varied from time to time and were always a notable tease for the patron. But be aware, the experience at Guides Inn will lead to many fine courses, so you need to save room so you can make your way to dessert. The famous relish tray with spreads that were made in the kitchen from scratch was a signature indeed, particularly in the upper right-hand corner, Jimmy Dean's famous liver pate. The next course that will follow would be the salads. The spinach salad with hot bacon dressing, or the garden salad with made-from-scratch dressings were always complemented by artisan breads that came out piping hot. The soup course was another important part of the Guides Inn experience. The baked French onion soup with its molten cheese was always too hot to eat right away, and patrons had to wait. Where the soup du jours from cream-based and stock-based soups were always creative and different from almost any soup you had in another restaurant. Again, another signature of the Guides Inn. Fish so many different ways, but without a doubt, the most popular is in the upper right-hand corner, the Guides Inn pan-fried walleye. In the middle picture, there's also the Guides Inn stuffed walleye. We actually have YouTube videos that Jimmy Dean created with a sponsor that will be attached to the description of this YouTube video. So if you want to see more of Jimmy Dean in action, be sure to click on those videos and learn more about the preparation of these important entrees. The images on the left and right are salmon specials, which would have been proudly marked on the chalkboard at the entrance into the Guides Inn. Another set of specials that would have appeared on the chalkboard would have been blackened scallops or fresh deep-fried bluegills on a Friday fish fry. The Guides Inn was always known for serving excellent steaks and having high-quality beef. My personal favorite was the beef Wellington, in this case ordered very rare and blackened. It should be noted that the Guides Inn was willing to adjust their recipes and didn't just stick with a standard stock with no flexibility, and patrons enjoyed this very special touch. Veal specialties to the left abounded and took up a big part of the newer menu, and the New York strip steak special to the right was a classic favorite of those who enjoyed the great steak dishes at the Guides Inn. Roast duck to the left and scallops to the right show more depth to an impressive menu. But as I said before, when we were looking at appetizers, you absolutely have to save room for dessert. Some people opted for the ice cream drinks at the bar, as you see on the left. But my favorite dessert that came out of Jimmy Dean's kitchen was the homemade ice cream, sometimes paired with one of the many desserts that traditionally come out of the kitchen. Jimmy Dean's homemade ice cream was a favorite for many. If you look behind the scenes, you can see flights of ice cream ready to go out, all made by hand by Jimmy Dean just days before in a homemade ice cream maker. Jimmy Dean developed strong relationships with many, many people within the Northwoods, on his staff and in the surrounding communities. We feel it's important to share a few gifts that were displayed within the Guides Inn. First of all, a cook from the Guides Inn kitchen who worked with Jimmy for many years created these stained glass pieces of art. They are prized as they bracket the entrance into the guides room, as well as the peak in the top of the guides room. These stained glass pieces are impressive and in full view of all the patrons. Jimmy Dean prized decorative plates. He had them all over the plate rails and throughout the building. His favorite was on the far right with a Guides Inn signature plate with a musky breaking water. Mindy Schnell, a Boulder Junction artist, created personal artwork for the Guides Inn. On the left, a hunting dog with a pheasant was after Jimmy Dean's passion for hunting and owning dogs. To the right is a comical look at a big muskie and a sunfish lurking around a bobber and a worm that was right in the bar area of the Guides Inn. At this point in the video, we would like to transition to a walkthrough video of the Guides Inn as it was on February of 2024. So folks can always come back to this video and reminisce. Over the past 40 years, many folks have sat down and looked at the back page of the Guides In menu, where the history of the Guides In is chronicled from 1920 to 1984. Jimmy Dean put this on his first menu, and it will be present at the last day the Guides In is open on February 29th, 2024. Starting back in the days of Prohibition and the Roaring Twenties, all the way up to 1984, where Jimmy Dean and Jessie Van Rossum made their mark on this historic property. We hope you find this video to be insightful and worth sharing with future generations about the Guides In, Jimmy Dean, and Jessie.